It is 5 o'clock somewhere, and you've tuned in to Season 4, Episode 8 of BRC. For those of you who'd like to watch this episode, I highly recommend it. You can view Season 4 on our website, YouTube, Spotify, WhiskeyNetwork.net, and Zencaster. I'm your host, Kerry Moynahan, and in today's Tales from the Still, we're diving into the unexpected intersections of whiskey, capital, and creativity. First up, we'll be talking with Hunter Robillard and Ryan LaValle of ASM Capital Partners, an investment firm dedicated to one of the most exciting and fast-growing categories in the whiskey world, American Single Malt. From backyard moonshine to premium brand acquisitions, Hunter's roots in the industry run deep. Ryan brings an investment strategy and a sommelier's finesse. Together, they're helping craft distilleries scale and helping investors see why whiskey is not just a drink, but also an appreciating asset. Then later in the show, I catch up with Neal Cohen from Tip Top Proper Cocktails in Tavern Talk. We'll explore how he and his co-founders took their music festival background and channeled it into a high-quality line of ready-to-drink classics. From old fashions to Penicillins, Neal walks us through the craftsmanship and inspiration and what it means to bottle balance in a can. So kick off your shoes, pour yourself a dram, and join me for this episode of Barrel Room Chronicles.
Unleashed Coffee is a farm-to-cup adventure like no other. Step into a world where exceptional flavors, tantalizing aromas, and rich mouthfeel take you on a journey from your kitchen to the picturesque coffee plantations at origin. At Unleashed Coffee, we believe in fostering connections between coffee lovers and the hardworking farmers behind each bean. Join the journey through our coffee subscription program and gain access to our exclusive online community, connecting you to fellow enthusiasts and the producers of your morning brew. To help you extract every nuance of flavor from our beans, take part in our on-demand coffee brewing courses right in the comfort of your own home. If you are seeking B2B coffee solutions that go beyond just beans, our comprehensive wholesale packages cater to the diverse needs of mobile carts, farm stands, restaurants, cafes, retail shelves, and more. Look no further than Unleashed Coffee to quench your thirst for quality coffee. Use coupon code COFFEEBRC at the checkout to receive 10% off your first purchase at unleashedcoffee.com.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is you are catching the show today. Today on the show, we are doing something a little different. We're going to talk to the ASM Capital Partners with Ryan and Hunter, who are going to explain to us about their new venture capital business that has to do with whiskey. It's all very interesting to me, and I'm very excited to learn more about it. And as you might guess from the ASM, it's about American Single Malt Capital. So with no further ado, Ryan and Hunter, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for being here. It's great to have you both. Okay, so before we get into ASM Capital Partners, let's talk a little bit about your particular whiskey backgrounds, because it sounds like you both have a bit of knowledge in the area. So Hunter, let's start with you. Tell me, when you were a wee little lad, did you ever see yourself working in the whiskey industry?
Thank you so much for having us on the podcast. And I was kind of fortunate to grow up in the whiskey industry. I never thought I'd be on the investment side like I am now. But so I actually grew up in New England, and my dad, Rob Robillard, started moonshining as a hobby in our backyard. So growing up and being in high school, I was always the cool kid. Everyone wanted to come to Hunter's house for parties and what have you. But so my dad started moonshining for fun, really just as a hobby. And eventually, I think my mom actually got a bit upset with him because we had neighbors and friends and family coming to our house requesting their moonshine. So I think there was a little bit of an ultimatum given there at some point. And my dad decided to go legit. He actually created his own brand of whiskey called Cabin Fever. And it was actually a maple flavored whiskey. And remind you, this is a long time ago. So in the early 2000s, before Fireball and all these other crazy flavored whiskeys were popular. We were from New England, so maple was really big. And my dad sourced organic, locally grown maple from small maple farmers, and he infused it with really high-end rye whiskey and made a premium flavored whiskey called Cabin Fever, started selling it in the stores in New Hampshire, and it just started to take off. You had a lot of younger consumers and female consumers who weren't traditionally drinking whiskey started off on these flavored whiskeys, and now you've seen what the category has become. So I grew up being exposed to that, watching my dad, watching my mom build that business. I ended up joining the family business and working for them. Did a lot in sales and distribution, so working with distributors and going to the different retail stores and educating them on our product, doing whiskey tastings, and just really started to develop a love for whiskey. And our brand grew from just the state of New Hampshire to 16 states. So over the course of years, we rapidly grew. We went from 3,000 cases of sales annually to 35,000 cases in in a short period of time. And so that growth was really exciting. And eventually we sold the business and the brand to Diageo. So Diageo bought our company. And I went from being a small family-run business to we ended up working with Diageo. We had a 3-year contract with them, a lockup. We couldn't do anything else in the industry. So it was cool to see, the bootstrapped small business version to Diageo, totally different experience. But yeah, that's how I kind of got into the industry, and that's how I started my career. And after that experience with Diageo, really got into another side of the industry I didn't see myself getting into, which is the investment side. So having been on the other side, owning a brand, running a brand, realized that's a really tough business. And it's an industry that's typically undercapitalized, right? It's one of the few businesses I can think of where you need to spend all this money buying, ingredients and sourcing, barley and barrels and spending all this money and then not being able to recoup that investment for years and years and years, right?
Yep.
And that's when the light bulb moment kind of struck that, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be an opportunity there. And so I started by raising capital from friends and families, investing that capital into barrels of whiskey, aging it, and then selling it to contacts that myself and my dad had in the industry, and eventually joined another firm to do that. That's where I met Ryan. And after some experience there, we decided to launch our own fund. And it's targeted to American Single Malt, as you mentioned in the intro.
Okay, Ryan, so tell me, how did you get started in all of this? When you were a wee little lad, did you think that you would be working in whiskey or in capital or all of the above?
No, but really fortunate to combine both the American Single Malt, the whiskey, and the capital piece of our company name here. My story starts out much differently than Hunter's. He's the one that got me into the whiskey space.
Okay.
But unlike our other partners at ASM Capital, I'm a numbers guy, right? So when we're talking to your audience today, they're going to want to hear probably from Hunter on the whiskey side of things. Not myself, but very exciting. I was in real estate, asset management, private equity, hedge funds, everything in between, based up in the Northeast in New York. And very fortunately, like I said, found myself in whiskey investing about 4 or 5 years ago with Hunter. Left a very large institution looking at after very large portfolios, and had the opportunity to scale up whiskey investing and spirits investing for some of my old clients, which were very large institutions, insurance companies, endowments, and offer them the opportunity to invest in something like whiskey that is not necessarily correlated to the other market. So it moves very differently than public equities and real estate, not as cyclical. And I mean, I was always a whiskey drinker, always a wine drinker. Wall Street, it was mostly Islay and other Scotch whiskey. And now very excited to see where American Single Malt has gone. All the different flavor profiles and distinctions, and somebody that likes peaty and smoky and in your face, to see that there's American Single Malt expressions. But yeah, fast forward to now, we saw from a global whiskey perspective 4 or 5 years ago, bourbon, Scotch, Irish, we saw the emergence of American Single Malt. We saw and identified the supply and demand gap and said, we need a product that A, we could bring to the investment side of the market, and B, take that capital that we get from that market to elevate American Single Malt as a whole. And if you fast forward to now, that's exactly what we're doing and exactly where we are, Kerry.
That's great. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the company. So, Hunter, you said it kind of started with you guys, you and your dad, and how did you meet Ryan? How did that happen?
Yeah. Also, don't let Ryan fool you. He's not all numbers and boring spreadsheets. He's actually got a fantastic palate. He was when he was in finance in Wall Street. Wine was a big thing. So he's actually a som. So he has his W sets through level three. So it took him a little adjustment from going from wine to whiskey, but he's got a fantastic palate. But yeah, so my dad and I started again, just investing our own money, investing friends and family capital into barrels of whiskey, aging it. There's a lot of value in the barrel, right? That liquid. And we know that whiskey gets better with time. And therefore, the value of that liquid goes up with time, right? And so it's a good investment opportunity. And so I joined a company prior to ASM to help them. They were a wine investment company and they were looking to expand into whiskey. So I helped them set that program up. And that's when I added Ryan. We were looking at doing something a little bit different, a little bit more institutional. And I know the whiskey space, but I don't know the investment space. And so I was just really scouring LinkedIn, looking for people that had an interest in either wine and spirits and an investment background. And I found Ryan. I saw that he had his SOM and his W sets, and that he was working in Wall Street. So kind of basically convinced him to jump ship and join the team. And that was about
Nice.
4 years ago. So yeah.
Okay.
Long story short there, Kerry, is he didn't stop calling my phone for about 2 months until I finally said, okay, let me hear what you're about. And
Wow.
it was just an opportunity I couldn't turn down.
That's awesome. Is it slightly more fun, I would hope, than Wall Street? Maybe a little bit.
Well, I get to talk about whiskey every day, so absolutely.
That's my favorite part of the job. Well, that and drinking it,
Yeah, that's the most fun part.
Okay, so when you guys, when exactly did ASM open? It was last year, but was it like beginning of the year, end of the year?
Summer of last year is when we formed we've been working on it for a few years now. Basically, what started all this was 2022. So in 2022, the TTP announced that they were going to look at creating American Single Malt designation, right? They didn't officially do anything. They just said, hey, we're going to, these are the potential regulations. We're going to look into it. And that got us excited because we're just fans of American Single Malt as drinkers, and I know people in the space. And that's when we kind of thought, wow, if this actually goes through, there's probably going to be a little bit of a buzz around American Single Malt, which I think is a good thing, both domestically and internationally. So we started planning for it and started talking to people in the industry. And then last summer, we decided to go ahead and we launched it officially. We raised capital in the fall. We started deploying that capital last year, early this year, working with different distilleries and brands in the American Single Malt space. And then January of this year, it officially got ratified and put into law, the American Single Malt category, which is really super exciting. So the timing couldn't have worked out better that we started this last year. And now on the back of that, we are raising another round of capital from investors, and we're looking to deploy it here this upcoming summer with some great American Single Malt producers.
That's great. So who are some of the distilleries that you guys have been helping out?
Yeah, so we're really working with everyone. We're talking to anyone that does anything with American Single Malt. We're a member of the American Single Malt Commission. So we're one of their sponsors for the American Single Malt Commission. So we get a lot of leads and information through them. And just doing our own research, so getting out in the field. What's interesting is kind of like we see in single malt Scotch, you're starting to see regionalities popping up in American Single Malt. So you've got the Pacific Northwest, you've got the Rockies, you've got Texas, you've got Kentucky. And so that's been interesting to see. So just being boots on the ground. And we work with both distilleries and NDPs, or non-distillery producers, brands that don't have their own production. So for example, we work with a contract distillery called Middle West out of Ohio. They have their own brands, fantastic distillery, fantastic operators. They've been making single malt for over a decade. So they have a lot of experience in the space. We're working with another brand called Wolves Whiskey, which doesn't have a distillery. currently fantastic brand and growing, at a really fast rate. So again, we work with partners across the spectrum, both on the distillation side and the brand side.
Very cool. So what is your Ryan, what's your day to day with, I mean, are you just sitting around doing contracts? Are you calling? I mean, who's responsible for calling the people to say, "Hey, give us your money." And who's responsible to say, "Hey, distillery, we've got money." Like, who does
That's
what?
a great question, Kerry. And we definitely have a distinction across the strengths of our partners. I focus a lot on the investment side. So, working with investors, bringing that capital in, legal structure, et cetera, et cetera. Again, everything that I would say is the boring but important stuff on the investment side. And then Hunter and the team are really focused on finding that top quality distillate, working with the distilleries. We'll all go out there and make sure that, do our due diligence. Tasting is a part of that, but do our due diligence, make sure that it's top quality distillate, that the product is there, the backing is there, that it's going to work within the timeline of our investment vehicle. And then we have other team members that work on the exit side. So it's, fairly easy to find the acquisitions and the distillers, if you all speak whiskey language, find the distillers that can make the product. But to find the folks, the brands, the export opportunities, the contracts, the market for American Single Malt and do it the right way, that takes a little bit more legwork. So we have a lot of focus on, and I'll let Hunter jump in on this, but a lot of focus on where the end product is going to go and how it's going to move out to the market before we even think about acquiring it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just a couple things there, because there is a great question, Kerry, and it's almost two different subjects, right? The investor side and then, the brand side, right? Because we're kind of the in-between between the money, the capital. So the investors on one side, and then deploying the capital, giving the money to the brands and the distilleries who are going to use that to grow their business, right? Mm-hmm. So if we look on the investor side, what Ryan and the team does there is pitching these investors. A lot of them didn't even know whiskey as an asset class was a thing, right? That you could invest in whiskey. I think you think of like the big companies that you can invest in on the stock market, right? Or like, you can invest in a startup brand and get equity in that brand, but actually investing in the barrels of whiskey, there's a little bit of education process there, right? So kind of explaining to them, how whiskey aging works and how when whiskey comes off the still, it's not brown, right? You'd be surprised how many people just assume that, whiskey off the still is already ready to go. No, it's a clear spirit. A lot of the flavor, a lot of the magic happens in the barrel. And then explaining them, educating them on the whiskey process, these investors, but also using terms that they would understand. So, explaining to them that we're essentially financing inventory, right? Like you might do in other industries. The difference is in this industry, the inventory gets better with time, right? The longer that inventory sits, the better the quality, the better it tastes, the more value it has. So you're going to get a better return as the investor. And, just explaining those differences there so they can understand it and walking them through the numbers. And then a lot of times it's getting those investors on site. So they're used to doing deals like in the oil and gas industry or with bonds or real estate. So the best thing and why it's kind of easy for us to raise capital is this is a much more fun investment for them to look at. We can get them on site. They can do the education process. We give them a tour. We get them to sample the whiskey, and it's a lot more fun than some of these other investments that they're looking at. So that's one of our huge advantages with being a whiskey investment versus some boring real estate thing or something. So that makes Ryan's job a lot easier. And then if you look at like the deployment side, that comes in with Robillard, my dad, his industry experience. Seth, who we talked about offline earlier, Seth, we hired recently. He's got a lot of experience in the space. He started Broken Barrel Bourbon, has done a lot of contract and consulting work with other brands in the space. And so they have a lot of industry experiences, industry contacts that they can leverage. And it helps that they have that kind of experience having built a brand, right? Having gone through what these clients have done. So when we were looking to deploy capital with a distillery who's trying to lay down more barrels of American Single Malt, right? We're not just a bank. We're not just a capital provider. We can give them advice on how they can grow their brand, what they can do for distribution. Should they look at the export markets? How you should incentivize distributors. And so we can kind of use some of our past experiences to add value that isn't just simply writing a check, right? And that's how we're able to get really good deal flow. And that's why we're talking to pretty much anyone in the space right now who's doing American Single Malt or producing American Single Malt.
That's really cool. So how did you guys meet Seth? Seth Benheim,
Yeah.
by the way, from Broken Barrel, who we were saying offline, he, as most of you know, we started the podcast because of the pilot I was doing, and he is actually in the pilot along with Broken Barrel. So yeah, how did you guys meet?
Had I known that, I would have definitely added Seth too to this. He's going to be very jealous now for sure. But we just my dad kind of connected with Seth over time through conferences and just, kind of bumping into him at different things. And we had looked at doing a couple different projects together. I think we've sold some barrels with him that wasn't single malt in the past for some of our direct investments. And, when we launched American Single Malt, we're just trying to think of someone to add to the team that's really personable, that really cares about the category and can work hand in hand with these brands. And, just Seth seemed like the perfect fit, and talked to him about it. He was super excited. He's a big fan of American Single Malt as well. And the timing just kind of worked out. So he's been with us for all of this year. He started end of last year, and he's really working with Rob to make sure that we have the deal flow we need for the fund, and that we're adding value to these different brands and distilleries in the category.
All right. So here's kind of a general question. How many investors have you guys had as individuals and or companies? And then how many different brands have you deployed money to so far?
Sure. Well, I'll let you answer the investor question, Ryan, then I'll switch over to the whiskey side.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have about, I'd say, a dozen to 2 dozen investors so far into the fund. And when you think about a fund structure, not to, again, bore you to death, but you're looking for the tickets that can get you to taking on the inventory that you need. So it's a lot of education, like Hunter mentioned. And we're still ramping up, but we have capital that we brought in from this pool of investors. It's an education journey. We have another close coming up about 15 or so institutions and individuals that we're talking to for that close in end of May, beginning of June, and that gives us the dry powder really to go out and execute on the contracts that Hunter and team have been working on the whiskey side.
Yeah. So we've done 5 different transactions so far on the brand and distillery side. So with different brands and distilleries, and we've been spending. That was last year, so that was the capital we raised last year and deployed. And we've been spending pretty much all of this year of 2025 doing due diligence for additional deals for the capital that Ryan and our investment team's working on closing right now. So we've actually spoken to over 30 different brands and distilleries this year, went on site, seen their facilities, done all the different tastings, but really narrowed it down to 14 different brands and distilleries that we're going to deploy capital into on this next close here. And there's kind of a rigorous process for us, because at the end of the day, we represent the investors, right? Our job is twofold. It's to grow the American single malt category. That's our mission, right? That's what ASM Capital wants to do. We're big advocates for the category. We like drinking American single malt. We want to see it on the global stage alongside Scotch single malt, Irish single malt, Japanese single malt. You even see, Australian single malt, French single malt becoming popular. Why can't American single malt be in those conversations, right? That's kind of our mission of the fund. The other part is we have to look out for the investors. Our job is to deliver them a return, right? They're writing the checks. They expect a return. And so it's really important we do the proper due diligence up front. We're looking at brands and distilleries that are growing, right? That have good backbone. The most important thing is good quality liquid, right? We're not going to invest in liquid that we don't think passes the test on quality. That means both from like a lab test perspective, tasting panels. We really want to make sure it's liquid that people will love, because that at the end of the day holds the most value. And then looking at the brand itself, right? What kind of legs does the brand has? Does it have any growth? Does it have any areas of opportunity that we can help them with and add value to. Those are all different things we look at before we decide, okay, we want to work with you and write a check.
Okay, so this sounds very intriguing. I'm actually, yeah, I'm very interested to follow you guys some more and see how this all works out for both your investors and for the brands. So if you were a brand and wanted some help and they have never heard of you before, who would they reach out to see if you guys would be a good fit?
Yeah, so you can just shoot me an email directly or go to our website. So our website is asm.capital. And then on the website, you will see a little bit about us, the services that we provide, both for investors and brand and distillery members. And there's a contact page as well. So you're able to fill that out, put in your information. We'll get back to you right away. We also have connections, links there to our LinkedIn as well. And my email is hunter@asm.capital.
Great. And then if they were investor, would that be the same path and just click on the different area on the website?
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And would they email you about that, Ryan?
Yeah, I'll throw my email out there for the investor folks. It's just ryan@asm.capital. But same thing, asm.capital is our website. You'll see the About Us, and you can see a contact form there as well.
Cool.
You're a big whiskey fan. Are you more bourbon or rye or single malt?
I'm more single malt. I'm more single malt and Irish, and then rye. I mean, I like everything, but my go-tos are usually a single malt or an Irish. Yeah.
Nice. What kind of single malts do you like?
Mostly, well, if we're talking Scotch, it's mostly things in the Speyside region. I really like the flavor profiles that come out of that area. But for American single malts, there's a few. I like Stranahan's has been pretty good. There's a few others that I got to taste recently that I had never heard of before, and I'm like, oh, that's good. And so there as the more come out, then the more I'm just excited to taste. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll have to get you a bottle, but I love Stranahan's. I'm a big fan of it. And one of the cool things about single malt, American single malt category, is so it's a new category, right? It's got all these new definitions and rules, which makes it American single malt. But one key difference between American single malt and bourbon is the barrels. So with bourbon, you legally have to age it in a virgin oak barrel, right? New charred oak barrel. With American single malt, you don't. You can use any barrel you want. So that's what I think is really exciting. Yeah. So many different flavors are coming. Like I've just tried the other day with Ryan a single malt aged exclusively in sherry cask, right, from start to finish.
Oh, nice.
I've seen rum cask finishes, ex Napa Valley wine cask. So you're starting to see a lot of experimentation in like the casking process, which is really.
Well, what I like about it too is you don't have to cut down so many trees.
Exactly.
That's a huge thing, right? You can use a barrel 4 or 5 times over. It doesn't make any sense to have
when they made that rule for bourbon, I thought, well, they're going to run out of trees eventually. Like what? So
I know.
But I love that we can now do something where before people were reusing them, but then they couldn't even call it whiskey, or and then nobody wanted to buy it because it wasn't called whiskey and these things. But so I'm really happy about. That is one of the things I'm really happy about
There's
that.
Definitely a sustainability component here too, Kerry. But more so than that, the one cask finish Hunter didn't mention that I love is we're seeing a lot of smoke and toast experimentation. Mm-hmm. So barrels that are being peat smoked, barrels that are just being smoked or hickory smoked in oak. It's incredible, and it's a blank landscape. So if you're a whiskey consumer and you say, I only drink this, or I only drink that, or I'm only allegiant to this brand. What we've seen, even since 2022, but even since the end of last year, what we're seeing in terms of brand growth and story and types of American single malt hitting the shelves, when I think even on the investment side, that's what's the most exciting is there's all of this innovation coming into the category right now that is driving, yes, investment return potential and the upside. But as a consumer, I have so many more options in front of me, and they're from 100 miles away, not 1,000 miles away.
Right. Which, and honestly, this is a good time for the American single malt to be coming out, since we're going to be facing these tariffs with the UK again and the EU, and So
that's a big question mark. And, luckily American single malt's so new. It's such a small category. 99% of American single malts sold in the US today. So very little gets exported. So any amount of exports is like a positive for us in the industry right now in American single malt category. But the other thing is like, okay, if that worst case scenario, this big question mark about tariffs, at least, there's a possibility that consumers might be more inclined to try a domestic single malt. In fact, we're actually having conversations with Scotch producers that want to launch a brand extension of American single malt or an American single malt blend to try and mitigate some of the tariff risk. So there's
That's
a lot of
idea.
opportunities there for sure. Yeah. And it's been fun just, working with different folks. We've also been working with a lot of bourbon producers that are looking to get into American single malt, and the bourbon industry's had a lot of headwinds last year and into this year from some just kind of sales number perspective and stuff. And it's really exciting to see American single malt growing, right? It's actually, according to the IWSR, which is kind of like the standard for the, stats in the drinks world, American single malt is positively growing. It's actually the fastest growing category of whiskey globally.
Yeah.
There's a lot of demand and there's a need for the capital, which is why we're here.
Well, that's great, you guys. I'm so excited that you guys reached out to let me know about your company. I think it's going to be really good for the American single malt industry. And I think it's going to be helpful for all those consumers that are, saying, well, I can't spend $150 on a $45 bottle of scotch anymore because that's ridiculous. So I think it's going to help out in both ways. So good timing on you guys. And thank you so much for being on the show today. Is there anything you want to shout out to the audience and let them know before we go today?
No, just try some American single malt. Get out there and support your homegrown single malts.
Okay. And do you guys have any socials that you want to give out there, or is it just your website?
Yeah, our website has everything you need, as well as our LinkedIn.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I look forward to catching up with you again in a few months or maybe next season to talk about how all of this is working out.
Thank you so much for having us, Kerry. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kerry.
Don't touch that device. We'll be right back with Tavern Talk. Like what you've seen on BRC? Want to see more? Experience more? And maybe even taste more? Then head over to our Ko-fi site and become a member of the Barrel Room Parlor. By choosing the copper level membership, you'll have exclusive access to videos related to topics discussed on the podcast and blog posts for members only. As an amber member level, you'll enjoy everything from our copper level as well as various spin-off series including The Cutting Room Floor and Kindred Spirits. In addition, the amber membership includes exclusive discounts to live in-person events. To join, visit www.barrelroomchronicles.com and click on Become a Member in the navigation bar. Or go straight to our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC and click on the membership link. Once you've joined, you'll have access to everything your chosen level has to offer. You'll even be able to participate with the show by commenting on videos and other posts. Don't wait. Sign up today for exclusive content and event discounts in the Barrel Room Parlor. Hello. So we are here at the WSWA, and I am with
Neal Cohen from Tip Top Proper Cocktails.
All right. So Neal, I know you have a bunch of RTDs out in the market, but right now we are going to concentrate on the 4 that have to do with whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your company. How did it come to be? And so you have, how many SKUs do you have altogether?
We've done 16 in total. Yeah. 6 of them all. We added 6 last year in 2024 alone. So, yeah.
And then are these the only 4 whiskey-based ones you have? Or do you have?
Those, we've had a Manhattan. Yep.
Okay.
So, that one may take a little break, but yeah, these are the primary offerings.
Okay. And so you guys started the company, when did you say?
We launched in September 2019 after about 2 years of development prior.
Okay. Did you help develop the company, or how did that?
I'm a co-founder along with my co-founder Yoni Reisman, longtime friend since elementary school, and basically coming out of the music festival industry, we want to be able to service a high-quality cocktail in an efficient manner. Okay. We are primarily an off-premise product,
Great.
but the initial spark was in the on-prem.
And do you see yourselves trying to get into things like hotels or airlines or cruise ships or anything like that?
Yeah, we've had a great partnership with Delta Airlines. We were on board for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And hotels have been great. We're, of course, in the mini bars when they have them, but as well as the grab and goes, like marketplace convenience
Gotcha.
in the lobbies, and satellite bars as well.
Okay.
Like a pool bar that may not have a fully stocked situation. So.
All right, so tell me about the first flavors or cocktails that you came out. How many did you launch with, and are they all still in existence?
Yeah, so we launched the initial 3 were the classic bitter stirred cocktails.
Okay.
We launched with Old Fashioned, Manhattan, and Negroni. Part of that was even our hesitation about putting juice in the can.
Okay.
And really wanted to stick with stirred because we knew that would be would hold up,
Right.
Shelf stable. And what we learned quickly is that because of the high proof nature of what we're doing, that actually acts as a preservative for juice as well. And so we're seeing, up to 18 months with juice-based cocktails, and well beyond that with our stirred cocktails as far as shelf life.
That's fantastic. All right, so let's try. You know what? You can't go wrong with an old fashioned. Let's try the old fashioned.
Tried and true. So classic bourbon whiskey, sugar, and Angostura bitters. Pour myself a little bit. And this one's been...
That's really aromatic.
When we first launched them, we had those 3. This was the best seller. And now that we have 16, this one's still in the top 3 alongside Margarita and Espresso Martini.
That's a very good old-fashioned.
Thank you. We say it on the can, always balanced, never too sweet. And, a big reason why we even launched with Old Fashioned, Manhattan, and Negroni was to ensure that those who were skeptical of the canned cocktail space were assured that now there was a brand that spoke to them and their palates.
It's got a very good spice on the end, which is sometimes hard to achieve by bartenders, which I really like.
Yeah, it's not shy on the Ango.
No, it's very good. And then are you allowed to say what kind of whiskey is in here?
Sure, we're using the high-rye bourbon from MGP.
I was going to say, it kind of tastes like a high-rye bourbon from MGP.
There you go. Your whiskey. And that's what we're using. That's what we've been using in all of these, yeah.
Well, so I see this one, the Penicillin, you have Scotch. Where do you get the Scotch for that? Same from...
we have a different supplier for the Scotch, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, and out of these 4, which is your favorite?
Right now, the Penicillin is just hitting just perfectly. And Wine Enthusiast gave it a 96 score, which I think is the highest RTD ranking they've given. I think they've given some others 96, but it's never been more than that. So, but the whiskey sour has surprised me.
Really?
I was kind of like, a whiskey sour is sort of an unremarkable drink. It's very simple, whiskey, lemon, sugar.
Yeah.
But, and I guess, a lot of our cocktails are simple, but I think it's one of those cocktails that because there's so many cocktails out there, I think it's kind of gotten swept under the rug a little bit. It's like a little overlooked.
Yeah.
And I've found myself, since we put it out, really gravitating towards it. It's really well balanced and refreshing, and we put it out in October, so it's been really delicious through the fall and winter. And one fun thing to do with that is, of course, all our cocktails are great over ice, but there's a few that you can toddy. So the whiskey sour, the Penicillin, and the bee's knees, gin, lemon, and honey. If you add a few ounces of boiling water to it, you've got an instant hot toddy. You can even put a little cinnamon stick in there if you want to get fancy.
I may have to do that. I always make myself hot toddies when I'm ill. So
yeah.
I do also in the winter, not just when I'm ill, but I always find that a hot toddy when I'm ill really makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
Well, the Penicillin, it's called a Penicillin for a reason.
Right?
But Scotch whiskey, lemon, ginger, honey, that's, yeah.
Okay. Neal?
Perfect.
It has been fantastic getting to know you, getting to know your products.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck here at the conference.
Excellent. Thank you. You too.
That does it for today's show. To read notes on this episode or learn more about our guests, please visit barrelroomchronicles.com. Want to interact with the show or have questions for our guests? Then ask them on our socials or send us an email. Or better yet, leave us a voicemail on our website. If you like what you heard, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. If you really liked it and you want to show your support, buy us a whiskey through our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC or become an exclusive member of the Barrel Room Parlor. If you work in the whiskey or spirits industry or just have a deep passion for whiskey and want to share your spirits journey, register to be a guest through our website. Last but not least, please enjoy your spirits responsibly. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, Solanjeva.
Barrel Room Chronicles is a production of First Reel Entertainment and is available on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.